Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Cioffi on this Thursday. And we have been pointing out over the last number of days that conditions in the tropics, particularly in the tropical Atlantic, look to be changing. You know, we got the first clues from that from the Pacific side, actually, when we had the three storms out there, and then everything else behind it kind of fell apart. Usually when the Pacific goes quiet, the Atlantic revs up. And we also saw the change in the tropical Atlantic profile in terms of the upper air, and we'll get to that in a second. But this is a strong tropical wave that is just moving off the African coast. You can see on the satellite loop here the latitude and longitude lines here. We're talking 15 west here and 20 west. These are the southernmost of the Cabo Verde Islands. That's how far east this thing is. So it literally just moved off the African coast. It's got some curvature to it. This is 10 degrees north, so it's fairly far to the south, but it's going to be tracking pretty much to the west. And we've got a long time to watch this to see how it plays out. Here's the water vapor loop. And if you've been seeing these water vapor loops on a regular basis here, we had this really large upper low that was sitting out in the central Atlantic, and it was producing very strong upper level winds from the west and southwest across the tropics. Well, that is pretty much gone. There's a weak upper low here now, nothing like what was there. The other system that we had pretty much dominated the circulation over 3/4 of the Atlantic Ocean from west to east. Not the case. Now, the other issue, of course, was the dry air that we were seeing coming off of Africa from the Sahara and getting all involved. You'll notice that the dry air now is smaller in size and scope, and much further to the north. The area of moisture has pushed northward to about 20 degrees north, and that's what you usually see as you move through the end of July, beginning of August, that intertropical convergence zone where you get these tropical waves to develop and move along, pushes northward, and usually it gets to about 20 degrees north, the northern boundary of it. Sometimes you can see this thing actually push up even further north in some of the more active periods that we get into. So we'll watch to see if that's the case. And right here is the edge of that tropical wave that's coming out off the African coast and moving to the west. So you can see the perspective here in terms of where it is. I mean, here are the Leeward and Windward Islands. So it's way, way out. This is going to be days to watch. And we've got other little tropical waves moving along, one here in the eastern Caribbean, another one to the east of the islands. This one's weak. This one here is firing up some convection today, but it's probably not going to be developing, at least in this area. Some of the models late in the period actually want to take something into the southwestern Gulf of Mexico and do something with that, but that's down the road, and we'll show you that in a bit. Some of the very early and first of the hurricane models with this system. So here's the Cabo Verde Islands. You can see the track is straight west, and then the kind of gets a little weird here where it turns north and then west and then southwest. You know, so you're going to see a little bit of spaghetti model silliness, perhaps, going forward early on anyway, until it gets out to like about 30 west or 35 west. You really can't ascribe too much reliability to some of the track model guidance. Just assume that the track is going to be generally to the west for the next 3 or 4 days at least, and then we'll see where it goes from there. We'll come back to this when we get to the models and the GFS. In the meantime, I just want to show you the tropical Pacific. We really don't see too much activity now. All the tropical storms, Irwin, Hillary, all gone, and the weather has just kind of calmed down on that side of the world. So again, usually when we see lack of activity in the Pacific, it is when the Atlantic fires up. Now, let's go back home. Because we had some pretty interesting activity yesterday, some widespread thunderstorm activity that away from the coastline produced anywhere from 2 to 5 inches of rain over eastern Pennsylvania, parts of central and northern, particularly into northern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, and Connecticut. Long Island got next to nothing. New York City was kind of on the edge of all this, so it was basically from along from the just inland of the coast, north and northwest, where the Storm Prediction Center indicated a marginal risk of severe weather, and they actually have it an almost identical setup for today with a marginal risk of severe weather. The only thing is, I don't see the upper air system that's coming through today. We had a little upper air system that moved through yesterday afternoon that kind of juiced up the atmosphere just enough with all the tropical moisture that was around. You had an unstable atmosphere as well. So everything got juiced up, and you saw the thunderstorm development. I'm thinking today there will be some development, but it might not be like yesterday. We can start to see the beginnings of some cloud tops back through Pennsylvania here in mid-morning, but I'm thinking it's not going to be as widespread. Could some cells get strong and even severe? Sure. And I think the threat from them is going to be the potential for heavy rain and flash flooding more than anything else, particularly after yesterday's soakings that most people got. So it won't take much to cause some flooding issues in areas in northern New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, even down to central New Jersey, certainly in the Hudson Valley, and through Connecticut. There were some really vicious thunderstorms that moved through parts of Connecticut yesterday as well. Meanwhile, we have another weather system in cold front, and this is going to be moving through Friday night, early Saturday morning. It doesn't really look all that impressive. It could be because when you get these upper troughs that move well out ahead of it, kind of takes a little bit of the juice out of the atmosphere, and there may be less for that front to work with when it moves toward the east coast. In the meantime, we do have some development of clouds and some showers down in the Gulf states, and out in the west, it's still pretty much typical summertime. Very hot in the northwest from Northern California northward, with temperatures over 100 degrees even along the coast. So they're having a pretty very, very hot summer. After an incredibly stormy winter, they're getting a very hot summer. So they're experiencing some extremes here seasonally for the last 6 months out in the west, and particularly the areas west of the Rockies out to the coastline. So that continues. There's a little upper low here that's spinning off the coast of California that's kind of dragging westward, and it's pulling up some monsoonal moisture as well into the southwest. So let's look at the upper air pattern, which you know what the the mantra for this is: ridge in the west, trough in the east, and that continues. You're going to start here with today, and here's the next trough in the east as it swings down and around. That's going to bring a shot of lower humidity into the northeast for Sunday into Monday. And there's yet another arm around this that's kind of lagging back into the plains, and that's going to swing eastward. Now that could produce perhaps some showers of rain here Monday night and Tuesday, depending on how a low center that develops tracks along it, probably going to form on the cold front that comes through Saturday and stalls out, because the jet only gets, of course gets so far south, so this front is going to get hung up to some degree. And then that spins around. We're now at the end of next week. We have another upper trough. This is the GFS's reflection of the system off the African coast, by the way, as it takes it to the west. And again, I want to just, remind everybody that as we get deeper out into the long-range period, when you see these sorts of things, you have to take them with a salt mine's worth of salt, because every model run is going to emphasize a different shortwave trough, which is going to impact the entire flow in the atmosphere. So you're going to wind up seeing, tracks all over the place. They are of no real forecast value, of a practical forecast value, other than to say that there's probably going to be something out there. But when you look now, we're at day 11, and you have a westerly flow across the United States with an upper low. Looks like at least that heat wave will break. The ridge wants to break in the west as we get into the long range period. So you have kind of a west-east flow. The upper air jet suppressed a bit further to the south than it usually is. The Atlantic ridge is strong. It's built east-west from just south of the Azores to Bermuda to the southeast coast. That would be supported for a more westward track for any tropical system. And then the model wants to pop a ridge in the eastern part of the United States and along the east coast. We'll see if that's real or not. We've been down this road before, but this is a marked change toward the second half of the month, if that's the case. And I want to emphasize that's a big if. We're going to look at the European and see the Europeans' view of all this as we start with today. Same idea. Where the models, let's see if there's any difference. And there is one right off the bat in that this is the European at 240 hours, which is day 10. This is the GFS's view at day 10. So you can see the big upper air difference between the two models. The GFS has this westerly flow from the Pacific across the northern half of the United States to the east coast, and of course it reflects that tropical system. You have an upper low sitting in James Bay and one off the coast of southwest Canada. That's the GFS's view, but look at the Europeans' difference here, where it's got more of a wrapped up upper low further south in the northern Great Lakes. Actually has, a little bit of weak ridging out in the west. Here's your Atlantic ridge that extends not quite as strong as the GFS has it, and you really don't even have a reflection of that tropical system at all on the European model, at least on it was the case on this particular run. So we'll look now at the surface, and just to look at the weather going forward. Go back to the GFS. We'll put the precip on. Again, I really there's no value to a model when it prints out a hurricane at day 10, and that needs to be emphasized here. You should not be walking away from this saying, oh my God, there's a hurricane off the southeast coast on day 10. Big deal. There's a 99% chance that it's going to be wrong. So here's our front for Friday night into Saturday. It's not really that impressive. This is Saturday morning and it's already on the coast. Dry air is coming in behind it. There might be a shower or thunderstorm ahead of it Friday night into early Saturday morning. But I think by Saturday afternoon, weather conditions will improve. There's your nice day for Sunday. Now here's your next system that's coming out for later Monday and Tuesday, because that front stalls out. So it does bring some showers here Monday afternoon, later Monday afternoon, Monday night into Tuesday, with a low that wants to go into northeast Ohio and then kind of redevelops just east of the New Jersey coast. Maybe a bit of an onshore flow might set up here for Monday into Tuesdays. We'll have to see what that means in terms of temperatures. Then that weather system moves by, still reasonably, let's call it seasonal at the very least, with a high to the north. Not that warm here in the northeast, still pretty hot in the west. Still has the main frontal boundary well to the south, so it can't really get hot here into mid-month with all these highs wanting to go to our north and low pressure going to the south. And of course, this was last night's model one. I didn't look. Let me look at the run before this. See what it did. So it looked like it did the same thing. And by the way, you can see also by day 9, there's something in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico as well on the GFS. But so all right, the last 2 runs wanted to bring something toward the southeast coast. Who knows? Okay, I have to acknowledge it, if only because of the fact that the model is showing it and you're seeing it. The Canadian model, you can kind of see it where it is on the Canadian. It's just coming into the edge of the picture of the frame here on day 10. But that's it. And as I said, the European, let me see if I can get that European surface. If I can find the one that I like to, if it's there. Let's see if we can use this map. Okay, this might work. Let's go to the tropical view of the European. I should mention that European on the day run yesterday did spin something up. It does actually acknowledge a low out here, but it doesn't really. There it is, right here. You see it here in 96 hours, which is Sunday night. but then it's gone. And then suddenly, by the way, you have by the middle of next week, there's a tropical system in the southwestern Gulf that it takes into Mexico. So that's the Europeans' view, which is much more benign. So we're going to just wait and see what the day runs bring and see what this adventure does to us over the next couple of days. Let me just remind everybody, Saturday, if you are on Long Island on Saturday, I will be at the Lindenhurst Library in Lindenhurst at 2 p.m. And if the tropics are active, this will be well timed because we'll have a system to look at and watch and try and forecast. That's at the Lindenhurst Library at 2 p.m. And if you can't make it to that one, I have another one on Monday on Long Island in the town of Islip at the Connecticut Library at 7 p.m. You can find more information on that on my Facebook page, meteorologistjoecioffi.com. And you can also find all the latest on the website I'm sorry, the Facebook page is Meteorologist Joe Cioffi. The website is meteorologistjoecioffi.com. Angry Ben has New York City covered on nycweathernow.com, Long Island weather on weatherlongisland.com, and you can download my weather app and subscribe to my forecasts, which are just $1 a month for New York City, Long Island, New Jersey, Connecticut, the Hudson Valley, and eastern Pennsylvania. So I'm going to stick around a little bit. We'll do a little bit of live chatting. And just so give me a second to switch over to the full screen, and we will move ahead. Switch over to the full screen, and we will move ahead. And I have just switched over to the full screen. So switch over to the full screen, and we will move ahead. And I have just switched over to the. And now I've muted the audio so that you guys can hear me like you're supposed to. All right, so Raymond, let me just jump right at with you. Sometimes with the Storm Prediction Center, I know they put those maps out and they basically cover like a 24-hour period. So it's hard to tell from the maps when you go into day 2, 3, and 4. You know, are they talking early? Are they talking late in the day? Are they talking overnight? I'm looking at Saturday and I'm thinking up your way. The front is already moving through eastern New York by noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm thinking that the severe weather risk there might be in the morning and not so much later in the day in terms of the timing of the front. That's going to be sweeping up to the northeast, sweeping through the northeast Friday night and Saturday. Hi to everybody who's still here. Glad that you're sticking around. If you've got any questions, just join the live chat and post the questions up. I want to at least again emphasize the fact that over the coming weeks, you're going to see, more and more of the weather model spinning up more and more tropical systems. Some of them will be real, some of them will be not. So I would not necessarily get worked up over any specific system that it spins up out in the long range. It's just too far out in the future to have any kind of practical forecast value. We'll try to get a sense of what the upper air is doing and whether that might mean something down the road. One of the things that I've pointed out over the last number of many weeks, the trough in the east, ridge in the west setup would suggest that something, if it times out correctly with a trough swinging around, that you could wind up with something problematic. But many things have to go in that direction in order for something to happen. This is all wonderful in theory, and you could have, the deepest trough in the world with the strongest southerly flow along the East Coast. If there's no tropical storm there, then there's no tropical storm there. And on the other hand, you could have a category 3 or 4 hurricane sitting in what looks like a prime position. And if your flow is from west to east across the United States, and that the next trough is not timing it with where a tropical system is, you're not going to have to worry because it's going to get kicked out to sea. So, I just don't want, one of the last things I try to do, I don't try to do. I'm not putting this stuff up there to hype anybody or hype anything. I think it needs to be addressed because everybody else does. And I'm trying to just, I want everybody to get a sense that I have a very calm, logical approach to forecasting and to what I see. If I am not worried about something, it's because I'm genuinely not worried about it. Other people may be, but I'm not. If I worry about something, then you know what? I'll tell you, and at that point, you should worry. And I can probably tell you that over the last many years, there have only been a handful of times where I have felt that way. So, and Sandy was one of them. But other than that, we're just going to deal with this on a day-to-day basis. Weather T, yes, a very strong tropical wave coming off the African coast, and it does look rather impressive. It seems like the upper level winds across the Atlantic now have relaxed. You can see that on the water vapor imagery loop. There's no big upper low sitting out in the central Atlantic anymore, creating hostile weather wind conditions aloft. So I think that the prospects of this system developing are increasing. Now, there are other issues, including the dry air from the Sahara. That seems to be diminishing. So we'll see what it does. I'll be very curious to see what what weather models do with this today, particularly the European, because the European yesterday did do something with this in terms of development, although it took it into the Eastern Caribbean and then weakened it. But it did actually develop the system while it was in the tropical Atlantic. It kind of backed off a little bit on the overnight run, although you could still find a reflection of it. So I'll be curious to see what it does with it today. Yeah, the front going in to be in New England, but 1 p.m. Saturday. Yeah, I'm talking about, Brayman, I was referring to severe weather threat. You asked, I think, about Saturday morning, about Saturday. So I would think that it's going to be, for upstate New York, it's going to probably be for the first part of the day and not the second part, okay? There is a severe weather threat for Friday as that front nears, so I would think that that would be probably for Friday late afternoon and evening. Although much of what goes on Friday could wind up being, further west than that, because the front is not exactly racing toward the coast on Friday afternoon. Bill Gooden mentioned a Kelvin wave pattern forming in the Atlantic. Okay, I'm going to have to do a little bit of research with this because I know that some of the really, really techie meteorologists look at this sort of stuff, and this is kind of beyond my scope in a sense. You got to understand something, folks. When it comes to a lot of this, there's so much technical stuff that's out there that a lot of people are into. That when I went to school, we really didn't have this. They didn't really teach this sort of stuff. So we've had to kind of learn it all on our own, and I have to do a little more research. I have to be honest. I am not really overly familiar. I've read about it a little bit. Again, a lot of the techie weather people do talk about this, but I'm not. I don't know enough to really give it an appropriate comment. But I will do a little bit of research, Bill Gooden. Right, Raymond, that's the marginal risk. That's probably what prompted it for the early part of the day. Yes, it is very deep learning, Bill Gooden, Kelvin waves and all this other stuff. I worked with someone that was really, really super into the tech stuff and used to drive me and my other fellow Mets crazy because he would just get into all this stuff and just rant for 10, 15 minutes at a time, and we would all be kind of just sitting there with our heads on our arms and saying, okay, but is it going to rain tomorrow? So I'm going to take a look at that. Anish Patel, do I have winter updates? I've said this many times already, and I guess I'm going to have to say it a few more times. I am not going to do a winter. I used to try to do a winter outlook. I really don't see the value in it, honestly. There's just too much variability for me to come up with something that makes any sense. I'll make some observations about the overall pattern going into the long range, but I just don't see any value in trying to figure out what the weather for the winter is going to be like for a period of 3 months, in which the vast majority of times, whatever you're going to say is going to be wrong. So why don't we just let the rest of the summer and fall play out, and let's see what it brings us when we get closer to the winter months. I saw a couple of long-range things yesterday with some models, people posting already about November with a negative in a North Atlantic oscillation, in other words, a Greenland block, which would suppress it and make it cold in the eastern part of the United States. And I was shaking my head. It's like, are you kidding me? After the winter we just went through, where we had these periodic models, periodic stretches of models trying to show blocking that never happened until it finally shows up in the March, April, May timeframe outside the winter months. So, I just don't see the value in sitting around here in August getting excited for something 3 months from now, if at all. Yeah, I guess they might up it to slight risk, Raymond. I'm just, you know what? I'm not really, the dynamics with the front, I'm just not sure. Okay, it could wind up being like what happened back a few days ago, where they were all gelled about it early, and then by the time we get there, the atmosphere has so little left to work with that although up by you it's a little bit different than it is down by me, but I'm just not really too worked up about that at this point. The Null School Earth webpage is amazing. Ever reference it? Are you, Bill, are you talking about the one where you can actually see the upper level winds at every level of the atmosphere animated? If you could put a link up here, I could, take a look. I have all sorts of stuff bookmarked, and I probably have seen that and have it bookmarked. I do not have a good memory for all the things that are out there, especially as I am now, getting closer to the age of 60. It gets very hard. If you could put a link up on the chat, I could take a look and see if that's what it is you're referencing to. David Anthony, we're getting a storm in the Caribbean next week. I have no idea. And there's no way to know what this weather system in the Atlantic is going to do, other than to say, there's going to be something moving westward across the tropical Atlantic for the next 3 or 4 days at the very least. Let's see where it goes beyond the 4th or 5th day. Bill, if you can't post the link, well, you could type the link out, and then I can just cut and paste it if the link may not work. If you can type the link out, if it's too long to type out, go to my Facebook page, Meteorologist Joe Cioffi, and you can message me there with it, or you can even message me here on YouTube. I think there's a way to do it. We're getting a hurricane in Trinidad. Okay, David Anthony, you're pretty far south. I mean, this thing is already lying along 10 degrees north, and it's 1,800 miles to your east. So the natural progression this time of year is for everything to move north of you. So I'm going to say you have a fair chance that it will go north of Trinidad, whatever forms, if anything forms. Okay, at least that's the way I see it at the moment. Yes, NHC Hurricane Center does have a 60% chance of development over the next 5 days, and I think that reflects the activity that I think that reflects what the models did with this during the last several runs. We'll see what today's model runs do with it. All right, folks, let's call it a day. I'm going to have to start getting ready to go to my regular TV job for this afternoon. So I hope everybody has a great rest of your Thursday. Watch for those scattered thunderstorms that might develop late this afternoon into tonight. And after that, will take us into the weekend. I'm looking forward to later Saturday afternoon and particularly Sunday, where we can wind up with some low humidity. I got my fingers crossed that that's going to be the case. And some sunshine and temperatures in the upper 70s to low 80s. I got to get some beach time. I haven't gotten any beach time yet. Maybe this weekend I might sneak down. And quick reminder, I know I mentioned it before, we've got my library appearance at the Lindenhurst Library if you're on Long Island on this Saturday at 2 p.m. And if you missed that, on Monday I'll be in Islip at the Connecticut Library, also talking about hurricanes and tropical storms. Mondays is at 7 p.m. So 2 p.m. Saturday at Lindenhurst, Monday at 7 p.m. at Connecticut in Islip, both on Long Island. And by the way, if you are in the New York, New Jersey, Hudson Valley, or even the Southwest Connecticut area, if you want me to, If you'd like to see maybe me appear at your local library, or perhaps your local town has these sorts of talks and programs, let them know that I'm available and they can get in touch with me and we can set something up. I'd love to be able to come out and bring my weather stuff to your particular neighborhood and address your concerns in both the local weather and the bigger picture, especially with when it comes to the seasonal stuff. All right, folks, have a great day. We'll talk to you on Friday.